WCNC Charlotte. This is Flashpoint, where power and politics collide, and the tough questions get asked and answered.
Welcome to Flashpoint here on WCNC Plus. I'm Ben Thompson, joined by Julie Kay. A big show this morning. For the first time, we are hearing from the head of the newly formed Metropolitan Public Transportation Authority.
And that's huge because, I mean, they have finally gotten started. It is a huge authority, 27 people. That is a lot. And so to finally speak to David Howard, it was really insightful. We got to learn a lot about not just what they're doing now, but what happens to the other transit organizations here in Charlotte. Also got a chance to speak with Colette Forrest, leader of the Charlotte Black Voter Project. So really insightful, both of them, just their hands in so many different parts of the city, but them coming together for that forum on Monday and getting a preview of that was really interesting.
All right, let's take a listen. Joining us here on Flashpoint, David Howard. He is former city council member, now chair of the MPTA, as well as Colette Forrest. She's with the Charlotte Black Voter Project, hosting a forum tomorrow, Monday, 5:30, where Commissioner Jarrell and Mr. Howard will be to talk about the bonds. Thank you both for coming on. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely humbled always.
So first up, David, let me ask you, because you have this big new job, head of the MPTA, and a lot of folks have been wondering since the bond passed in November, what's been happening in the 5 or 6 months since then. Bring us up to speed. What's been happening?
Well, you know, a lot of what's going on anything like this is getting it right, getting the foundation right. So the foundation for us means that we had to set up bylaws, we had to set up policies, because remember, the CATS has been under the city now for the last 50 years. So a lot of the things that the city does for CATS, we have to stand up brand new. No HR, no comms, no legal. I mean, there's a lot of things that just the city has done for CATS that now we have to stand up. So we've been hard at work getting to know each other. I don't know if you know, at 27 people, we have the largest authority board in the country by 2 people.
Wow.
So, you know, some of that is us just getting to know each other. So we've had 3 retreat dates, we've had meetings, and as of last month, I'm happy to say we have the bylaws now done. It took a lot getting 27 people to agree on that. We have a conflict of interest and a code of ethics in place, which was important to me. I want to make sure that the public knows that we take this responsibility serious. And we just divided up into committees, 3 committees, well, 4 committees with the executive committee. So we're hard at work.
It's been, I think, about 11 years since I've interviewed you, so I feel like
Sure.
I have a ton of questions I need to get caught up on.
I've done a lot since then, for
I
sure.
know you have. You have.
Yeah.
But you just brought up, so people realize this authority was selected by
Sure.
members of city council, members of county commission, members of general assembly, the governor, small businessmen.
The 6 towns.
It's a bunch of different people that have come together.
Yes, and we all bring our own thoughts, our own history, and our own agendas. So, you know, trying to figure out how to make that one has been interesting. We don't even introduce ourselves from where we're appointing anymore. We just say that we're trustees because we need to meld as one.
And then another housekeeping thing I've asked myself and wondered, so the existence of this authority, what does that mean long-term for CATS?
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a good point, because we're not replacing CATS.
Okay.
Sometime, and we just started sharing this one because we didn't know when the right day to merge to lift and shift would come. We're aiming for January the 1st right now. So January the 1st makes sense for us to bring the staff under the new authority. And there's a lot of moving pieces. I mean, you know, the tax starts getting collected July 1. We'll start seeing proceeds sometime October 1. I mean, the next 6-7 months are going to be a lot of moving parts. But the real key is that you'll see the staff of CATS move over July 1 because of benefits and stuff like that. But then it'll take longer to move the assets, to move the buses and all the things that are on the land and all those things that are going on. That's going to take probably another, 24. Some of those assets may not even come in for 10 years.
So then what will be of CATS at that point?
It'll be under the authority.
Okay.
I mean, really the only thing that you may see different is a brand change at some point. But right now, remember, it's the same buses, it's the same riders.
Are we sticking with MPTA? That's sort of...
Yeah, that's not sexy, right?
No.
We don't know yet.
Okay, all right.
That's not what you want to spend the time on either. You want to spend
Fair.
the time on getting benefits right and routes right. I mean, I've made a commitment And I've gotten the board to support me. No late buses, no late trains, no late paychecks. That's what you should expect during transition. All the work should be done behind the scenes.
So will Brett Cagle then answer to you at some point?
The CEO will answer to the board.
Okay. All right. Now, there's some bigger issues. I just was curious
That was
about all
fun,
those things.
man. I got a lot to share, man.
Okay, so more important things now that I've got all that sort of shifted in my brain.
Sure.
Let's talk security, because this week CATS laid out a $10 million increase in security budget.
Asking for more money.
Asking for more money, and that would come in the form of off-duty CMPD officers, fare inspectors, because we also learned that something like half of riders were not paying, which I think a lot of people are like, wait, what? Can you promise that transit going forward is going to be safer under MPTA than it has been in the last few years?
Well, you know you're not going to get me as a former politician to promise anything. I can tell you that it's our goal, though. I can tell you that everybody that went into this went into it with their eyes wide open to the issues CATS has been dealing with for the last couple of years. And we know that means that we need to make sure the public knows that safety comes number one, and it does. For the next, until January 1, though, it continues to be the city's responsibility. And I'm very happy to see what the city and the city council has done to address safety.
And you said January 1, not July 1 or January?
January 1.
Okay, all right.
No, it'll stay with the city until January 1. But the city's made a commitment. I mean, I think there's an announcement today about how crime has come down. So it's working. Well, we keep going, when we study a police force, all those things are to come. But there's a plan that was approved by FTA, a safety plan, that will give us our guide. So we'll start with that and go from there.
Better bus plan. That's sort of one of the big priorities. Light rail, trains get all the glory, but
First lane out. Yeah.
the bus thing is the first thing that happens and honestly affects the most people. Talk about it.
Well, it affects me. I mean, I don't know if you know, I'm a Charlottean. I grew up off West Boulevard, right up the street. So first bus ride I took was when I was 6, and I rode it the rest of my life. And when I go to other cities, I still ride. I was just in D.C. a couple of days ago, and I was riding transit because people depend on it. I mean, it was amazing to me how full the train was after work in Washington and how many people depend on it to move around. And we want to be the traveler's choice of getting around. So that means we got to be cleaner, we got to be faster, we got to be more dependent. So buses is the backbone of that, no two ways about that. And what you should see in these first 5 years is a commitment to that increased headways. You'll see the commitment to the bus shelters. You'll see us commit to things like microtransit that will make the bus rider, give them more convenience and more access.
And then what? Because I know the legislation sort of laid out how projects can be prioritized. So what's next?
But it won't be and then. It'll be all going at the same time. I mean, you saw City Council committed to funding more of the work that needs to be done to get the red line done a couple of weeks ago. I mean, so none of that stops. I mean, we're going to have to chew gum, rub our head, pet our dog, and do all those things at the same time. And we need to staff up to do that. I mean, essentially the budget is going to triple. I mean, right? So, you're adding a penny. I mean, at 60%, it's going to almost triple. So from that standpoint, we've got to get ready to make sure we can roll all these projects at one time, not one at a time.
So to that point, what's the latest on the red line?
Well, I know enough to. I'm not asked questions on purpose sometimes, but I go back to this one with the Planning Commission. I used to be chair of the Planning Commission back in 2007, before I went on City Council. Yeah. So I've been involved in the red line a really long time. I was involved. I'm not going to say the toll word. I'll say anyway. I've been involved a really long time.
Express lanes.
I've been involved a really long time. So I mean, in a lot of ways, we're just kind of catching up because the towns have been preparing for this a long time. Oh. So I mean, for us, now that the O line is actually secured, now it's just a matter of figuring out how we roll that out and how quickly we can do it. It's buying the trains. It's making sure that the stops are decided where the actual platforms will go. It's making sure we know what the land areas will be around it so it makes sense, what the ridership numbers are now. So there's a lot of moving pieces with that, but it is underway. In fact, the drawings, if I remember right, are about 15 to 20% done, and that's the way you do a project. So the closer you get to 100% of documents is kind of where the project is. And right now, I believe it's like 15 to 20% complete, and it'll keep evolving.
When do we get to see them?
Well, a lot of the stuff is already there. I mean, actually, like I said, because we've been talking about this since really, late 2000s, early 2010s, a lot of this stuff is decided already. We're going back now just to make sure it still makes sense.
What about Silver Line? Where do we stand with that? I mean, I know a lot of people disappointed it's not going as far southeast as the original plan. Where do things stand now?
Yeah, that one I'm going to take a sigh on. It's a big project. It actually probably, if I'm thinking about these numbers right, I'm not sure we've ever in the state invested in anything. I think it's going to be like $4-6 billion. Nothing's cost that much in this state, not even a road so far. So, I mean, that's a real deliberate conversation we got to have. And as you know, the General Assembly actually required in the payback for us to look at how to do a value engineering study that's due July 1, by the way, because we've been talking about it, on how we could save money to extend the line further east. So those conversations are underway, and there's a lot of conversations at the retreat from these new trustees about how we interact with the airport, for instance. So, there's how it interacts with Gateway Station downtown.
And
it's a lot of moving pieces.
By interact, you're talking about the fact that I think as of right now, it goes about a mile north of the airport.
It comes out to Wilkerson.
And it's been criticized because it's like, okay, why not bring that closer to the airport? But that runs into FAA problems and things like that.
Well, it's just not that. It's just, where do you want to spend your money to? If you really want this to be a regional plan, do you want to go down into the airport or do you want to go over into Gaston County? Because you're spending money both ways.
Yeah.
So, so some of this is just us making a decision as a body when we have more information about how we want to proceed.
Streetcar, what's the latest? Anything?
Just the same thing. I mean, that project is part of the bond, was part of the referendum package, and that was extending it to Eastland one direction and sending it to the Rosa Parks Center the other direction. There'll be some conversations, I think, on the east side about kind of how the silver line and the gold line interact, because they're really close to each other. I mean, when you get us out to Bojangles, it's really just a mile over the central.
Yeah.
So it's pretty close. So, are people going to take the time to do gold line, or are they going to go with silver line and go straight in? There's some things that, I have questions about personally that I think, I'd like to figure out how they play together and, if both investments are even still needed. That's what I guess I'm saying.
You sound somewhat skeptical in that last.
No, I sound like I need to get more information.
Okay.
And and because these are big moving projects, you want to be diligent about this. You don't want to jump into it.
When's the first, and I think bus service is probably the answer, but what's the first tangible thing you think people are going to notice and they're like, hey, this is the bond money at work?
It'll be the shelters and the new headways on the buses. But remember, none of this is budgeted yet. The money doesn't start really hitting the bank accounts until October 1. So it is being talked about really in these budget conversations with the city council right now. And because we're going to take over that budget somewhere in the middle of next fiscal year, we're in those conversations too. Okay. We're going to run our own budget process that will mirror the cities because we will take over it. But yeah, you'll see it show up in the budget. I think Mr. Cagle talked about it last week during the budget process about kind of the commitment to the shelters and the buses and how he's programming buying buses. I just learned last week that, buying a new bus can take 3 years. Because it's such a backlog on buses and not a lot of companies that do Buy America. So, so some of this is just trying to get in front of it, and we need the cash to do that.
Your title is Chair of the Metropolitan Public Transit Authority. People hear that title, and they think, what's he got to do with toll lanes?
Absolutely
and the answer is
nothing. So let's be clear. The MPTA, which stands for Metropolitan Public Transportation Authority, is dealing with your transit system and not the roads. It will be confusing because that penny actually includes 40% for roads and the 60% is going to transit. We will deal with that 60%. The 40% doesn't even cover highways. That is really NCDOT. Now, I used to work at NCDOT, so I know quite a bit about it and have opinions, by the way, Ben. I won't share them here, but I have them. But no, we don't have anything to do with the tolls. We will interact with 77 twice, right? It'll be the streetcar goes under 77 right now at Batesville Road and Trade Street, and it's eventually the Silver Line will go over some type of bridge over 77. So there's some relationship with NCDOT we'll have to have, but not on the actual toll lanes themselves at all.
And you don't have an opinion you'd like to share?
I think it needs to be an urban solution. And right now, I'm not sure I've seen a real urban solution.
And what do you mean by that?
just taking into account that you're going through the middle of a metropolitan area and not, going through a metropolitan area and taking that into account, not making those communities further apart, but pulling them together as much as possible.
All right, if you're just now joining us here on Flashpoint, and we're joined by David Howard, Chairman of the MPTA, and Colette Forrest. Colette, let's go ahead and bring you in. I promise we did not forget you. You're the head of the Charlotte Black Voter Project. You are hosting tomorrow, Monday, you are hosting a forum with Mr. Howard as well as Mark Jarrell, County Commissioner. How did this come to be? Why did you do this?
So initially, I was opposed to the transit because I did not know the benefit to the black community, and I was afraid of the detriment to the black community. I was afraid of the burden for the tax, especially because everyone's going to pay into it, but everyone's not going to benefit from it. And when I hear Mr. Howard, and I love the dialogue and the conversation that the two of you had going, so I was intensely listening. But when I hear Mr. Howard and I hear your questions, Ben, talk about safety, one of my biggest concerns that I heard, be it Brett Cagle or maybe the city council members, was that they were going to get their own police force. And I'm like, okay, this is interesting, because CMPD is having a hard time recruiting. The sheriff's department is having a hard time recruiting. So how are you new kids on the block going to incentivize folks to become a part of your safety team? So that was pretty interesting to me when that was floated out, that they're going to have their own safety team. And then I thought to myself, are you all going to have body cams? Is it going to be legislatively controlled or monitored, or by city council? That's been a dysfunctional mess. So I just had questions when I heard that idea being floated. So to me...
Okay, let me get his response to all of that then.
Sure. Colette's my friend, so
Yep.
She has made all of this very clear to me, by the way. And what I'll tell you is that the appointing bodies did a fantastic job on who they appointed. It's just not me, but I mean, you know, having the head of the NACP, the Black Caucus, having neighborhood people, riders, having business people, it is an incredibly great mix of people. So what I can tell you is that this body is committed to doing it the best way, because they come from the neighborhood. I mean, these conversations about, you know, what the responsibilities will be of a force if we even want to do it. I can tell you that we're all committed to finding national models. I've actually had an opportunity to
national models that work.
That work. Oh no, absolutely. Models, absolutely, best practices. So I mean, for me as chair, the way I plan to lead us through that conversation is through the committee. We have an operations committee chaired by former city council member Julie Isel. Vice chair is David Longo, who's been very involved. Great mixture of leadership. Actually start the conversation. What does that look like? How do we fund it? Should we fund it? Or should we stay the way we are? Should we have a close relationship with CMPD? I'm not sure, but you know, we're going to do what's right by the neighborhoods first. I grew up in those neighborhoods, Colette. I can promise you, while I'm there, we're going to do what's right by the community, 100%.
And that's why we're having this forum. Conversations and dialogue just like this. People that ride the bus all the time, people that ride the bus infrequently, because I was surprised at the loss of ridership and at the loss of revenues that the transit and the bus systems are taking a hit. And we want it to be financially successful because we know that the funds go to the city, and with the city, the community. So just wanting the community to engage with Mr. Howard and his fellow MPTA members and ask questions, interact with them, not to bite off their heads, but just talk to them, neighbor to neighbor. How is this going to benefit my community? And is it going to hurt my minority brown community? I'm worried, I'm afraid.
And being just one thing. Yeah. So if you've noticed, for the last 4 or 5 months, we've not been out front. We've been invited. Yeah. And we've stayed in because my thing was get it right before we start going out telling people stuff. I didn't want it to be based on what I thought, you know, you want 27 people to be as close to each other as you can on things so that we're not saying different things. I think it should say a lot to my good friend Colette that the first community meeting we're having is with her. And I knew she would have these hard questions. So we're not shying away from the hard questions. We want to hear it, as a matter of fact. But, you know, they should be prepared for the fact, like with you, there are not a lot of answers yet, but we're working on it.
And the first show you decided to come on was Flashpoint.
It is.
Also worth noting.
It is.
I remember talking to you before this, Colette, and that you were against it at the time. Have you changed your mind?
I have adopted a wait and see, but the thing that is so good that has caused me to breathe is my trust for David Howard. My trust for David Howard, my respect for Frank Emery, who's vice chair of the board, my respect for Corinne Mack, who's with the NAACP. So once you have people in the room that stakeholders like me trust and respect, then we begin to say, okay, you know what? Let's give them a chance. Let's see what they're talking about. Let's see what they're working with. Because we should know they're going to do what's best for the community. And I love that. And I also love the fact that, like the ridership of Charlotte and throughout the transit system, it's majority minority, so is the MPTA.
Well, because, as you know, when it came to this issue, the black community was sort of split.
They were.
It was not monolithic, and I think
No.
it came down to like 51-49 in support of it, but it was by no means overwhelming.
No, they did not have a landslide. They did not have a mandate. And our former mayor, Anthony Fox, so eloquently penned, if you remember, an op-ed to the Charlotte Observer after the vote. Okay, these are the things that people need to consider. These are the things that people need to take into account. And remember, like David Howard, Anthony Fox is a native son as well, that have gone on to bigger and better things on the national scale, and was our former Secretary of Transportation.
Who I worked for, by the way.
Yeah.
I went to
Yep.
Washington.
Washington,
Yeah,
yep, that's
so he had relevancy to say, all right, let's listen to the side that was opposed to it. So I would think the only thing that I was disappointed in was that they only had, out of the 27 people, only one person, which is Minister Corinne Mack, oppose the bonds. That to me seemed a bit heavy-sided,
Gotcha.
But again, trusting David Howard, respecting Frank Emery, having trust and respect for Minister Corinne Mack with the NAACP, I said, you know what? Let's just wait and see.
But let's be clear, Corinne Mack is like, her voice is like 6 people on that board, so she is making her voice be heard.
And I respect that, but numbers are numbers.
She's being heard.
Numbers are numbers.
You brought it up, though, since I think last time we had you on Flashpoint, you were a mayoral candidate, and before that, I was covering you on city council. In that time, you went and you served with Anthony Fox in D.C.
I've been busy. So since I left city council, I spent the last year of the Obama administration as associate administrator of policy at Federal Highways. So I don't know if you know the whole Reconnecting Communities initiative, which is kind of what 77 is about.
Yep.
Pulling the black communities back where they've been split.
So we don't have Brookshire to happen all over again.
Well, he actually,
Split up and
when-
divide our neighborhoods.
when he did this national program, he talked about I-77 and 85 because it split his neighborhood of
Yes.
Dillbrook.
Yep.
I mean, he talked about it all over the world, y'all.
Yeah.
I'm telling you. So my job was to help stand it up at Federal Highways. I was number 3 in leadership at Federal Highways. So I worked on projects in Birmingham and Denver, just like this 77 one, because the whole idea was to pull them back together. In fact, I'm going to give you something today that we just figured out. And that's that we're going to start a series of kind of community engagements. And the very first one is going to be Anthony Fox on May 6th. So you heard it here. We just decided it, confirmed it like in the last hour. So
When and where?
You heard it first.
we're working on the where,
Okay.
but it'll be in the evening. And the point is to have a community meeting. I'm working with Reverend Mack and Jay Ferguson and some other people that have been giving me time to get this thing together before we started talking.
All of whom oppose the transit.
And they know us well, and they've told me how they feel. in detail, actually. And they want to hold us accountable. Again, not running from it. The first one is going to be coordinating with them. So just hear it first. And then after I left Washington, I spent about 5 years with Governor Cooper. I was Chief Deputy Secretary at North Carolina Department of Transportation. So I know a lot about these subjects, a lot.
Clay, as I say, you're the head of the Charlotte Black Voter Project. So I want to talk just quickly, broadly speaking. We actually saw a big voter turnout in the recent primary.
Yes,
Demographically, we should say black voters turned out in larger numbers than any other group.
So I sent to you some data, and what we are seeing is when you give voters something on the ballot that they care about, that they're connected to, they show up. Be it Barack Obama in 2008 or Barack Obama in 2012, when they're educated, when they're viscerally connected, they show up. Primary 2026 was no different. The sheriff's race, when you looked at the data and pulled it back, the sheriff's race was the #1 driver throughout Mecklenburg County. Second to that was House Seat 105 with Carla Cunningham and 99 with Nassif Majid. When you look at those precincts broken down, precinct by precinct, people turned out. They had those 3 races had the highest turnout in Mecklenburg County. And as such, I was so proud to share with you guys, black voter turnout in Mecklenburg County was at 19%. It was the highest. White voter turnout was 16%. Hispanic turnout was 8%. The total turnout was 15%. Democrats killed it with 21%, Republicans 11%, and unaffiliated, which voted Democratic, was 11%. But can I say one more time, as a co-founder of the Black Voter Project, black voters had the highest turnout in Mecklenburg County in the March 3rd, 2026 primary. That is phenomenal.
And that was an increase, I think, from the last go around.
Oh my gosh, yes. It was a huge increase. And so, again, when you give people candidates that they care about and issues that they care about, they turn out. And our nature is wired, we either vote for or against. We either protect a candidate or we want them out of there.
How would you describe the current state of the black vote here in Charlotte right now?
I think, again, going back to the March 3rd primary, I think if you give black voters, like voters period, something that they care about, that they're interested in, that they connect to, they're going to turn out. If you don't, they're going to stay home.
All right.
And you didn't ask me to come on here, and I'm going to be careful.
Please.
But, you know, I do think the referendum actually kind of got people energized. I-77 is keeping them energized. Stuff happening on the national scene is keeping them energized. I mean, you know, so to Colette's point, when you get our attention, you keep our attention. Or you keep our whatever you get from us.
Yeah. Well said. Well said. David Howard, Colette Forrest, longtime Flashpoint guest. Thank you both for coming on. We appreciate it.
And listen,
Please.
we would be remiss. Monday, April
Yes.
20th.
Yep.
Monday,
No,
April
that's-
20th. The
yep.
reason that we're here, Monday,
That's right.
April 20th, 5:30 reception. We're going to feed you well.
Location?
6 o'clock panel. Rita Memorial Baptist Church, my church. Our social justice committee is humbling the Charlotte Black Voter Project and comparing their greatness with ours, and we're coming together. So we've got a great panel. We've got David Howard, who is the chair of the MPTA. We've
Yep.
got Mark Jarrell, who always cares about the least of these. He is the chair of the Board of County Commission, and they weighed in to the penny sales tax
we
issue
owe Mark a
and,
lot
and,
of
and the
credit,
transit
yeah.
issue, and he's been helping them, he being Mark Jarrell, navigate throughout
He
after the
absolutely has.
passage. So we would have been remiss if we did not have them come back together, interact with the community, and say, hey, this is where we are.
And the
this
money
is what's
comes through,
happened.
and the money comes through the county. So
Yep.
they're going to be our bankers for years. So-
Perfect. All right. David, Colette, thank you both. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
More Flashpoint after this.
Back to Flashpoint. I really want to get into that interview, but first, so much is going on. Ben and I have now done a couple episodes on the General Assembly
Yeah,
coming back very soon here. When this episode's aired, it'll be that week. But they're already getting started doing some things. So I want to touch on the property tax update, the cap that they are trying to put on your ballot this November. If the General Assembly moves fast enough, that's a question in itself, but that's really what I've been focused on this week, and so I wanted to show some quick clips from an interview I did and the General Assembly itself, so take a listen.
You don't get priced out of the home you already own. You get taxed out. What this amendment does is, at the will of the voters, requires the General Assembly to establish limits on the growth rate of property tax levies. ensuring that any future increases are deliberate, transparent, and constrained within a defined policy framework that protects homeowners, renters, and business owners. Importantly, to be clear, a levy limit is not a reduction in local authority. It is a mechanism for moderating property tax bill growth, with room for exceptions for emergencies and when residents approve.
Well, anytime you're looking at the budget, think about what we do as a county. Health and Human Services, public health, social services, education is at the top of the list. We are already funding hundreds of millions of dollars as it relates to public education. We want to do that. We believe in education. We know that that is the key that unlocks opportunity. But the more funding that you take away, the ability of taking that away from us is only going to hurt this community. And so, again, we always welcome the opportunity to work in dialogue with our partners at the state. In this particular case, they haven't asked. We've sent a letter, we've outlined our concerns, we've offered them the opportunity to connect with us, not only us here in Mecklenburg County, but the State Association of County Commissioners has made the same offer, outlined very similar concerns, and unfortunately it appears it's falling on deaf ears with some.
So you just heard there from the committee that actually passed it through. That was a Republican representative from Cabarrus County who was in support, clearly, of this property tax cap. Still want to emphasize long way to go before it might end up on your ballot. And then, of course, that was Mark Jarrell, Board of Commissioners chair, who is actually going to be at that forum on Monday, sharing his thoughts. And so, again, a lot more to go before this may or may not end up on your ballot. But it's a constitutional amendment, and so that's why voters would get to decide. Big deal. Really hard to undo if that is what they decide to do.
So now we're at the end of the program, talk about what we learned. I'll go ahead and go. You know, having David Howard on was a big deal, because not only had we not spoken to him in a long time here on Flashpoint, but also because this transit authority has been pretty mum for the last few months. We haven't really heard what they're doing behind the scenes or anything like that. Like, as you mentioned, it's this huge board. So just to hear sort of the logistical things they're going through to put together an authority that large, he said it's, I think, largest by 2 in the country, and sort of the juggling they're currently doing between the red line, the better bus plan, the silver line streetcar, all things we've heard about, are still very much up in the air, still being sort of worked out and hammered. And then so for people who've been invested in this plan, and there's a lot of people across the city, it's good to sort of just get an update of where we stand on how things are going.
And it's complicated too. I mean, you and I talk about these things all day long, and even we had questions of just like, what happens to cats? I mean, I'm glad you asked that, just to get some concrete when and how and what. I mean, it is just so complicated to have this, not just this many people, but this many separate entities now come together. But even at the same time, you ask the question of, you know, this is the Transportation Authority, but it's really public transit. And so, you know, I-77 is not under their wheelhouse. So there's still things that are separated from this. And I think just to put things into buckets and find out what was going to be combined and what wasn't was interesting.
And it seems like there might be at least some appetite, according to David Howard, of naming it something better than MPTA, which is a mouthful. And
it's not my favorite.
Yeah, right.
We have to say it all the time.
It just doesn't flow off the tongue, like some other things do. So we thank them both for coming on. Good to hear from them both. And again, Colette would be upset if we didn't say her big forum, 5:30, I think 6:30, Monday night. Talking about the bonds, and Mr. Howard will be there as well.
And we're going to have all those details, of course, on our website as well, WCNC app, link to everything that you need if you want to go.
All right, learned a lot. All right, here's hoping you'll join us next week right here on WCNC Plus for Flashpoint.